We're about to dive into one of the darkest, most confusing stories of our time, but we're going to look at it through the eyes of a man who sees the world in a totally different way. A world of hidden threats, elaborate deceptions, and secret operations. So let's just start with this bombshell of a quote. It comes from Gavin de Becker, and if you don't know who he is, he's one of the top security experts on the planet. This is the guy who protects Supreme Court justices, who advises people like Jeff Bezos. So when a guy like that says something so completely shocking, you've got to ask, what in the world does he mean, a made-up person? How can a person be made up? Was his money fake? His power? Was his entire life just one big performance? And if it was, who wrote the script? And what was the point? Let's get into it. Okay, Section 1, a manufactured man. The core idea here, according to de Becker, is that the Jeffrey Epstein that the public knew, the billionaire genius, the guy with all the connections, wasn't real. It was an invention, a character, built to do a very specific and very, very dark job. De Becker actually calls him a construct. Think about it. He points out that Epstein's whole backstory just doesn't add up. He wasn't some self-made Wall Street whiz. The key, he says, is a massive $500 million transfer from Les Wexner, the guy who founded Victoria's Secret. Now, to de Becker, that's not just some weird financial move. That's the seed money. That's the funding that launched the entire operation. That money created the myth. The private jet, the island, the access. It was all bait designed to be an irresistible trap for the most powerful people in the world. And look, this isn't just some wild theory from an outsider. That quote, that's from the actual U.S. attorney who prosecuted Epstein in Florida and gave him what might be the craziest plea deal in history. When he was asked why the deal was so unbelievably lenient, why it protected not just Epstein but all his unnamed co-conspirators, his answer was simple, and it's chilling. I was told he belonged to intelligence. And remember, this is the same guy who later had to resign as Secretary of Labor over this exact deal. So if Epstein was an intelligence construct, what was the job? How did the whole operation actually work? Well, de Becker says it was an incredibly sophisticated blackmail scheme, but with a psychological twist that made it so much more powerful. First, you need the right tools for the job. De Becker is clear, based on his own sources and what victims have said, that Epstein's properties were just riddled with hidden cameras and eventually audio recorders. He even tells this story about how the FBI searched the New York apartment and found a bunch of CDs, but didn't take them. When they came back 6 days later with the right warrant, poof, the CDs were gone. Now, the method de Becker lays out wasn't your standard blackmail. It was just psychologically brilliant. It's this 4-step playbook. 1, you get an invitation. 2, things are manipulated into a very compromising situation. 3, it's all secretly recorded. But here's the masterstroke. Epstein wouldn't come to you and say, hey, I've got this tape of you, now do what I say. No. He'd approach you as if he had terrible news to share. And this is the genius of the trap. He completely flips the script. He'd frame it like the girl involved made the recording and was trying to blackmail both of them. He'd say, this is awful, but don't worry, I'll take care of it for us. By making himself the rescuer instead of the blackmailer, he didn't just get leverage for one little thing. He created this lifelong bond of debt and gratitude. He owned them forever. So what was the end game? Simple. Control. Control over powerful people. De Becker believes this entire operation was being run for the benefit of a foreign government, and specifically an ally of the United States. He points to Israel, and he notes that Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, was a well-known intelligence asset for Israel, so important, in fact, that multiple heads of Mossad attended his funeral. For Gavin de Becker, the Epstein case, as horrifying and as weird as it is not a one-off. It's actually a perfect, if extreme, example of a much bigger pattern he's seen his entire career working with the most powerful institutions on Earth. This is really the core of his whole worldview. It's a dark thought, for sure, but in his experience, it's just how the world works. Whether it's a government or a massive company, deception isn't the bug, it's the feature. And you can see the parallels pretty clearly. Epstein's secret cameras are just a small-scale version of mass digital surveillance programs like Pegasus, his operation being an intelligence front. Well, that just mirrors decades of government secrecy around things like Agent Orange. And the legal cover-ups that kept him out of trouble for so long, that's the same playbook corporations have used for years to lie about products they knew were killing people. Speaking of corporate lies, what's this number? 52 years. That's how long it took from when Johnson & Johnson first told the FDA that its baby powder had cancer-causing asbestos in it to when the FDA finally made a ruling against it. 52 years. Well, people just kept on using it with no idea. De Becker saw this kind of thing firsthand when he worked in the Reagan administration. He says that in these high-level government meetings, the conversation was never, okay, how can we tell the public the truth? It was always, okay, what are we going to tell the public? It's all about managing perception, controlling the narrative, spinning the story. So if we're living in a world where these incredibly powerful institutions are designed to deceive us, what are we supposed to do? How do we even navigate that? Well, De Becker argues we're not helpless at all. In fact, he says every single one of us was born with an incredibly powerful defense tool. He calls it intuition. And this isn't some soft, mystical concept for him. He describes intuition as, and this is a quote, the nuclear defense system that all human beings have. It's our most advanced piece of survival technology, built up over millions of years. You know, we're all taught to worship logic, but logic is slow. It's plodding. It has to connect the dots one by one, A to B to C. Intuition is like a flash of lightning. It just jumps straight from A all the way to Z. It's that immediate gut feeling, that sense that something is off or that something is right, way before your conscious brain has time to line up all the evidence. It's exactly like he says, knowing without knowing why. De Becker tells this incredibly powerful story about a woman who, years after escaping an abusive relationship, was reading her old diaries. And she found the entry from the very first day she met her abuser. And on that first day, she had written down that he made her feel queasy and that she was not so sure about him. The answer was right there at the very beginning. Our intuition often flags the danger immediately. The tragedy is that we use our logical brain to talk ourselves out of what our gut already knows. Which kind of leaves us with one last question, doesn't it? In a world full of sophisticated lies and narratives that are spun to control us, maybe the most rebellious, the most powerful thing you can possibly do is just learn to trust that quiet voice inside you. In an age of deception, is listening to yourself the ultimate act of defiance?